Hello, and welcome everyone to the Hustle Code. The Hustle Code is a series of curated talks with some of the most persistent founders and investors in the startup ecosystem. Here we try to decode the what, why, and how of their journeys. Through these stories, we wish to embrace the spirit of hustle. So brace yourselves for a gripping and an insightful dialogue.
Hi, good morning, everyone. A very warm welcome to the first episode of the Hustle Code. I am Karthik, and I have my colleague Tushar. We will be your hosts for today. It is with great pleasure we introduce to you our guest. She is Anuradha Agarwal, the founder of MultiBhashi, a leading innovative edtech company in India. MultiBhashi is a multilingual app enabling users to learn new languages, including English, through their native languages. So, Anuradha, it gives me great pleasure again. Welcome to the Hustle Code, and great to have you on the show.
Thanks, Karthik. Thanks, Tushar. Thanks for having me on the show.
Sure, let's jump right in then. Anuradha, I'd like to ask you, did you ever dream of being an entrepreneur when you were young?
So Karthik, my childhood and my upbringing has been slightly different. The word entrepreneur definitely didn't exist while I was growing up, and the kind of family that I was born into. So I was born in Jaipur into a very traditional family, and there, right from the beginning, it was an accepted fact that by the age of 17, 18, you'll get married and you'll become a housewife. So I can't say that I ever dreamt of being an entrepreneur when I was a child. The only, and not even a dream, I'd say it was like a realization that you always had, that you'll grow up to become a very good housewife. So all my childhood, all my early years, I was actually being trained and I was being prepared to be a good housewife rather than anything else. I never had any hope of starting a professional journey in my life.
Oh, that's really interesting. So then, can you just take us a little bit through what was the initial thought process, the genesis, so to speak, of MultiBhashi? What was it like way back in 2016?
Sure. So, like I said, there was no guidance from the family side. There was no orientation towards starting a career in the early years. But thankfully, I was a good student. I used to score well in exams in school and college. Reasons why I was able to score well back in school, which I clearly realized, was that I was good at English, to communicate my thoughts very well in the written format, and I was able to ask questions in my classroom without hesitation, so that made me stand out as a topper. I used to score well, then I used to also clear interviews really well. So then fortunately I was able to complete computer science engineering, then MBA in finance, all from Jaipur, because there was no option to leave Jaipur anyway. But then, thankfully, I got married to Devendra. He's an ITB alumnus. And from there, I think my journey professionally started, because this person is very, very enthusiastic about following passions, not just for himself, but everybody around him. He'll always inspire people to follow their passion. That's when I started working with a couple of companies. Then I and Devendra, we together started Dexter Capital in 2013. This went on for around 3 years, from 2013 to 2016. 2015, Karthik, my second child was born, and this was a little complicated pregnancy, which is where I had to move back to my hometown for a couple of months. This was the longest I was staying in Jaipur since getting married with my parents, and that's where I realized that things have started changing. Now people were, especially the younger generation, was more eager to explore new opportunities outside Jaipur, build a career for themselves. Women were also, dreaming such things, and that's where a few of my friend circle, relatives, women from those circles came, approached me and said that, okay, Anuradha, we also want to do something in life, but our biggest hurdle, our biggest mental block is that we can't even speak in English, which was very surprising because English is just a language. And I was like, I mean, you can learn it, or even if you don't learn it, there are plenty of things that you can do. But I think it's easier said than done. When you have a capability, you are not capable of understanding what it takes for the other person to go through the same journey and survive without that capability, right? So I was like, okay. So my first reaction was I directed them to a few existing apps and websites which were already there in the market. So then they decided that, okay, Anuradha will go through the links that you've mentioned, and they actually went through those apps and websites, and then they came back with a feedback that, see, this is not the kind of English we want to learn. So that was a little surprising because I thought there must be solutions already, because this is quite a a prevalent problem. It's not a new problem. A lot of people have this problem. They want to speak in English and they can't. So they told me that most of the online solutions, what they do is they teach you English in the school format, like the way we've learned English in school for 12 years. They start from scratch, they teach you grammars, vocabulary, and then they move on to hi-fi vocabulary, but nothing is contextual or conversational. So they said, this is not helpful for me. I will take years to learn English this way, and then also I'm not sure if I'll get the confidence to go to my neighborhood mall and speak to a salesman in English. So I was like, okay, that is your use case. Is that what you want to do once you learn English? Well, this is one of my use cases. I have millions such use cases that I want to cater to. I don't want to learn what is present tense, what is future perfect tense. So I was like, okay, fair enough. And I started helping these group of people by giving them small written notes. So we started with the first use case of a salesman in a mall. And I wrote dialogues between a salesman and a customer. And then I asked them to role play with me. You are a customer, I'm a salesman. Okay, I'm welcoming you. Hi, how are you? What can I do for you, sir? And so on. So then they started saying those small dialogues, and they instantly felt gratified. They said, okay, this is giving me confidence. This is what I need. I need more such use cases. I need to practice more such use cases. Next time I'm going to a mall, I'm going to use these dialogues, right? So I can step out and use it immediately. This is something snackable. So I kept doing this. Then sooner I realized that, okay, written notes may not be enough. You may need some audio also for pronunciation. So started recording my own voice. I used to start every chapter with आज हम सीखेंगे रेस्टोरेंट में अंग्रेजी में कैसे बात की जाए, आज हम सीखेंगे मॉल में अंग्रेजी में कैसे बात की जाए. And then I used to recite dialogues between two people in English, and then I used to explain them in Hindi. So this was really helpful for them. And then I went one step ahead and I said, looking at the written notes and listening to the audio creates a kind of disconnect. So I went a step ahead and created an animated video where two people were talking to each other and dialogues were playing as a background and the text was there in front of them. So it became all the more interesting, engaging. Suddenly the absorption of content became higher, right? So people really loved that. But the challenge was, when I was sharing these video files over an email, it was getting very bulky and people were finding it difficult to share further with their friends. Because almost always when you teach one person and they like it, they want to share it with their friends. They know a couple of more people who want to learn the language, right? So then I said, okay, to solve the problem, let me do one thing. Anyway, you want to share, right? So let's do it on Facebook. And I started uploading my videos on YouTube and Facebook both. This Facebook page was started in Feb 2016. So from 2015 to Feb 2016, this whole thing was going on. There was no desire or intent to start any business. I was just trying to do something which was very close to my heart. I always had a love for languages, and I was trying to solve problems for people whom I cared about, right? So a lot of people were flocking to the page. They were liking these videos. They were sharing these videos, putting comments on them. They were trying to chat with the page. And just for fun, by the way, I called it MultiBhashi without giving it much thought. And the chats were becoming a little too overwhelming because I still had a day job. I had two kids, one of them very young. It was anyway difficult to create the content. I used to put my kids to sleep and then tiptoe out of the room and record my voice and upload it, create animations, everything I was doing on my own. I didn't have any help. So handling those chats was becoming a problem. That's when I came up with the idea of installing a chatbot on Facebook. I used a free tool and I created a chatbot. So that chatbot used to take some load off me. This was going on, and only the use cases which the chatbot was not able to handle used to come to me. So one fine day, somebody from Bangladesh came to the Facebook page and said that, okay, I want my mother to learn English, but all your videos are bilingual in Hindi. So you teach English through Hindi in your videos, but my mother is, a Bengali. And it was very interesting for me. So I said, okay, give me a week's time. I'll get you those videos. I hired an intern online who was a native Bangla speaker, and we dubbed a few of these videos from Bangla to English. And surprisingly, those also did really well. So we started posting those videos and people were coming to the page and again liking them, sharing them. So this was probably my eureka moment in July 2016 when I said that I really want to do this. I'm really loving it, and instead of juggling two jobs with two kids, I'd rather focus on one. This has a huge market opportunity as well. So as long as it is a hobby, it is something that I'm enjoying, I can still do it as a side gig. But if I realize that there is an opportunity there, a huge market to capture here, it makes more sense to then take it up seriously as a business opportunity. So I formally left Dexter in July 2016 and I started MultiBhashi. I started building up a team, very nominal team with a very few tech team members, and we started creating the first version of the app. We decided that app would be the best way because we are looking at building some serious habit. When you're trying to learn something new, you need to come regularly back, so you need notifications, you need everything properly organized, and you don't just need one way content. You don't just want to deliver videos or deliver learning, you also want to test them on that, right? So you need two-way interaction there. So we did all that and we released a very primitive version of the app by December 2016. We had an app which taught English through Hindi and Bengali. And like I said, MultiBhashi from day one has been very, very user focused. So from there onwards, whatever we included in the product always came from the users. And that's how I think I'll stop there, Karthik. Otherwise, I can keep going on and on.
Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, that's an amazing initial thought process that's been converted into a business and a business model. So, Anuradha, with that introduction, I would understand that MultiBhashi is more of a product-first business. And what would you say are the right skills required to build such a great product?
So Karthik, see, there are a few hard skills which you need for a product, but more than that,
Mm-hmm.
what I value are some of the general skills. So one of them being user obsessed. So like after building a product for almost 3 months, and we continue to build it, the product continues to evolve. What I've
Mm-hmm.
realized is that initially when I started off, I used to think that okay, somebody needs to be really hands-on with tech or design or content or marketing in order to build a super product. But now what I realize is all these things you can learn as much as you need to learn. But what is the basic thing that you need as a product manager or a product person is you need to be obsessed about your customer feedback, how to take customer feedback. And I'm not just talking about the verbal feedback that you collect through surveys and interviews. I'm talking about building feedback loops inside the product so that
Mm-hmm.
you are continuously getting to understand what your users are telling you.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, to be able to scale to almost 50 languages would have been impossible because humanly it's impossible to be flawless, right? But our users kept helping us improve the product. When we used to release a new feature, we used to make sure that we used to consult a few of our very, very, what do you say, high usage users that we're coming
Mm-hmm.
up with this. What do you think about it? And I'm not saying that we've not done our share of mistakes. There have been times where we've devoted too much energy into a product feature
Mm-hmm.
which based on our user interactions we thought that was very important for our users. They're really looking forward to it, but when we introduced it there was little impact, or sometimes we had to even roll it back. So yeah, but overall, if I look back, this has been the fun thing that we've done right in our journey.
Interesting.
Anuradha, so taking it further,
Hmm.
we all know that there is only so much that you can do, as a CEO. You
Hmm.
have to build a core team around you.
Correct.
So, can you just take us to the through the initial journey which you had while hiring the initial team members?
Hmm. No, so Tushar, this was one area where initially I struggled a lot. So you hit the right nerve. When I was starting off, Tushar, I had a good circle of founders. I had a good circle of investors as well because of my Dexter background. But I did not have a good circle of techies because I did computer science engineering, but then I never pursued it as a career. I moved on to MBA finance quickly, and then whatever jobs I did was in the finance domain. So the first problem that I had was because I was all content. I didn't have any dependency in terms of what I want to deliver, right? So the product side of thing or the content side of thing was already in my head. I'm also pretty okay with design. So that was also one part that was pretty sorted for me. But when it comes to actual execution, I was never a hands-on techie. So that was my initial struggle. And two, so there were two challenges for me when I was starting off. One, I didn't know whom to pick because I had simply no idea whether this person is good or bad. And second, my problem was how do I build confidence in the other person that this startup is going to take off. I just had an idea on paper and a lot of passion, right? So one is you don't even know the person you're talking to is good or bad, and if this person is really good, why would he like to join you in your business? So this kind of problem was there for me for almost 6 to 8 months in the initial phase, and I was only focusing on product at that time, or tech for that time. Luckily for me, one of our a few of our core team members who joined me in the beginning, they're still with us, like Akshay from tech, Adesh from marketing. These people are still around and they have been instrumental in the journey. Like they have built the entire product from scratch, and these people were really good. So I would say I was more lucky in that sense. I can't take the credit of being good with picking people, and I think that laid the foundation for MultiBhashi. But it was definitely a struggle.
Okay. Do you have any examples to share with us where at least you can tell us, what went wrong in hiring? And
Hmm.
maybe you sort of created that as a roadmap in your hiring process that you would not repeat those mistakes again.
Sure, sure. Yeah, Tushar. So this is one mistake that I've done repeatedly and have learned from every time. From early on in my journey, so my hiring process has evolved a lot because of committing these mistakes again and again. Initially, what used to happen was I used to get very impressed with the resumes, what was on paper. But and a couple of mistakes I did was I hired people from premier institutes, IITs, and IIMs, and they looked very promising on paper. They, in fact, looked very promising when you talked to them as well. But somehow, after being hired, they didn't deliver on the, I would say, the things that they need to deliver on. And there were a couple of mistakes. I wouldn't purely blame it on these people. A couple of mistakes that I did was not defining the JD very clearly. So the person coming on board also didn't know exactly what was expected out of this person, and I also expected the world out of them. So they came from, let's say, background A, and what I expected from them was background A anyway is given, you will do well there, but I also want you to do well in department 2, or department B, let's say, right? So I think that's where my expectations and the real performance mismatched. And this myth of hiring only from premier institutes broke because, in fact, my hiring experience has told me that people who have passion and hunger to learn and a very good value system are far, far, far better than people who have immense amount of experience in this field, good hard skills. Hard skills are important in a few roles like tech. In tech, you cannot survive only on passion. So you need some hard skills. But in most of the other profiles, what I've seen is attitude trumps competence any day, like hard skills any day.
Got it. So, Anuradha, as Peter Drucker has said, right, culture eats strategy for breakfast. What does culture mean to you?
So very difficult question, Tushar. I have heard a lot from fellow founders that a few of these startups have their culture document defined and so on and so forth. I haven't reached that level, and honestly, I've read a lot about building culture at a company and so on. But the way we have functioned so far, and we've been 3 4 years old now, we haven't really defined in black and white what our culture is, or what are the do's and don'ts and so on. But when I introspect a little, and when I see what are the things that any person at MultiBhashi or who's been at MultiBhashi would tell you the company's culture is all about, few things that we hold really dear are constantly striving to better ourselves, right? So 99% of the team is motivated less by monetary incentives, motivated more by working hard and seeing results out of that. So I don't know if you can call it culture, but this is one thing that we hold really dear. Second thing that I have seen that differentiates us from the rest of the company, the rest of the people, is respect. So there is an immense amount of respect among team members for internal as well as external people, right? So whether it is users, whether it is candidates when we are hiring, respect is something we really follow. Among team members, if you're giving feedback to each other, you have to be respectful, even if it is negative feedback. How can you deliver it positively? When you're dealing with external stakeholders, how can you be prompt with your responses? This is one thing that is very dear to me, and that's probably, and that's what I've heard is culture flows from the top. So I've seen a lot of things that are dear to me becoming dear to the other team members also, because somewhere I keep reinforcing it in the people, right? I am really pissed off when people don't respond to somebody. Even if you want to say that I need some more time to respond, it is important to respond back, because otherwise it is disrespectful, in my opinion. So this is something we really follow.
So, Anuradha, you are a solo entrepreneur and you're also a working mom. You're running this business as a single co-founder. I'm sure it is very challenging for you. Let our viewers know, how do you handle so many tasks at the same time?
So one thing is, I wouldn't glorify being a solo founder. It's definitely very challenging, and I've had a tough time managing. Two things that have worked in my favor are, one, Tushar, that I've had a very solid core team. So if you look at the 4 or 5 people that I have in my core team, extremely committed, dedicated guys, extremely capable, that has almost acted like co-founders for me. And secondly, what has helped me both at the professional and personal front is support from my husband Devendra. So Devendra is not actively working at MultiBhashi. He's managing his own 2 startups, but the amount of experience he has with different startups helps us a lot. So we get a lot of mentoring from him on the professional front. And the secondly, with 2 young kids, it has been very helpful because of having a understanding husband. So we've never been very fussy about the kids. They've been very independent from a very young age. I am not very proud of the fact, but they do all their homework and school stuff on their own, although they're just 5 and 8 right now. So in that sense, I think these two things have been helpful, Tushar. But otherwise, yeah, I totally admit that being a solo founder is challenging and not at all recommended. It's always good if you have a couple of co-founders in your journey, and I'm actively looking for people to fill that void.
That sounds very interesting, Anuradha. Actually, you've helped us understand that being an entrepreneur per se, as viewed from the outside, is not just all glamour and being on the cover of magazines, but there are several underrated aspects, and those are good points you gave us. Thank you. Let me ask you, what really is the role of a mentor? Is that particular aspect of having a mentor really crucial in the journey of an entrepreneur, especially with a startup when they're solo co-founders? Does it build a positive and impactful support system, or how does it work?
Karthik, it doesn't matter whether you're a solo founder or you are multiple co-founders working on an idea. Having a mentor is always helpful. Although that's where the challenge also lies, because you have to really find a true mentor. Right now, I see a lot of so-called mentors in the startup space, and they can really take you for a ride, right? So you have to be cautious about who you call your mentor and how you select your mentor. But having a mentor or even multiple mentors, right, in different areas is extremely, extremely beneficial. For me, besides
Hmm.
Devendra, a lot of fellow founders have been very good mentors. A lot of people from the investor community. So I'm not sure if you know, but MultiBhashi has been a part of 6 accelerators, and a couple
I
of
see.
people from these different outfits have been very good mentors for MultiBhashi. And why having a mentor is important is for two primary reasons. One is I believe that any startup goes through highs and lows. And during your lows, you need somebody to, cheer you up, to tell you that, okay, you're not alone. Everybody experiences this. Simply this fact, from coming from somebody whom you really respect and who's seen it all, who's experienced this whole up and down kind of a journey, means a
Right,
lot.
right.
Secondly, you are so obsessed with the problem that you're solving or the solution that you're building that it is difficult to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. So in our case, for example, I'd like to especially mention VG here from Axilor, Venugopal. He has been instrumental in our journey at multiple points where he made us realize that what is the significance of what we are really building and what is the right approach to go about it, not just go about building it, but also what is the right approach to communicate about what you're building. Because in a lot of ways, what you communicate is what you attract, right? So I would totally recommend any young entrepreneurs out there, even before you're starting to work on your idea, if you can get hold of two or three people, if you can convince them to bet on you, because every mentor, when they are helping you, when they're investing their time on you, are also doing a big favor to you, right? So to be able to generate that kind of commitment in somebody also is a form of hustle.
So, Anuradha, a lot of our listeners are aspiring entrepreneurs, right? And we all know how funding is very important for, seed stage businesses to take off.
Hmm, hmm.
Could you tell us about your experience with initial fundraising? You were the first time entrepreneur. So, was it tough for you to really understand what's happening, in the investor's mind, how to convince them?
Hmm.
Were there any learnings from your initial fundraise process?
Sure, Tushar. So, for us at MultiBhashi, and especially for me as a founder, a lot of things were stacked up against me. Uh, One, I was a first time entrepreneur. Two, I was not from any premier institute. So, back then, when I was fundraising, there were very few examples of people betting on non IIT IM founders. Uh, Third, we were working in a space where one of the players had already raised a large round, like a really large, impressive round, right? So the question was, why do we need another player, and how will you differentiate, and how will you really survive against such a big player, right? So all these couple of things were there, which were stacked up against me. I wouldn't say I didn't know how to go about it. My background at Dexter definitely helped. Devendra's experience definitely helped. So it was not like I was lost and I didn't know what to do, how to approach, what to communicate, and all. Dr. Malpani, Dr. Anirudh Malpani was the first person to take a bet on us, and I would say more than the idea or the product, he took a bet on the passion that I had, right? And I'm extremely, extremely grateful to him for that. But one thing that helped was perseverance. So I didn't give up even after, like, I could have got bogged down by all this list of feedback, right? That okay, probably I'm not the right person, or probably this is not the right space. But one of the reasons why I could persevere, Tushar, was also because I was not in the game to become a celebrity or to become even an entrepreneur, right? I was in the game because I really cared about the problem that existed. I was really, really passionate about it, and I was really enjoying what I was doing. So even if Multibashi had not done well, suppose if it had not raised any funding, suppose we had not reached anywhere, I think I could have done this for the rest of my life. I could have continued to do this for the rest of my life, maybe as an NGO, maybe as a lifestyle business, but it would have been very difficult for me to give up on the business itself. So I think that helped me persevere, and perseverance was the key to ultimately raise funds.
Anuradha, I think by now the listeners can really sense the passion that you have for multibashi in the way in which you've come across answering all these questions with great points for all of us to typically make note of and probably integrate it in our quest of building startups. Well, that kind of brings us to the penultimate topic of this podcast. And as you're aware, our podcast is called The Hustle Code. So, with that point, what exactly does hustle mean to you, and what really keeps you hustling?
Hustle is for me is to never give up. Is to never give up, whether you are trying to raise funds, whether you're trying to hire good people, whether you're trying to convince a mentor to become your mentor. Uh, in everything you do in a startup, whether you're trying to reduce costs, whether you're trying to find out a better vendor, hiring a dream candidate who is just not ready to hire to join you. Hustle is the fact that you are not ready to give up, in one simple line for me.
I
And
see.
what keeps me hustling on, what keeps me not give up is, like I said, the passion that I have towards the problem that I'm solving, not essentially towards the product I'm building, because that will keep changing. But the problem that I'm trying to solve, making learning a new language as easy as a piece of cake, I think that passion keeps me going. Like I said before, even success or failure doesn't matter. This is so close to my heart, and I enjoy doing this so much that I'd probably keep doing it, even if the form changes or things are not the way they should be.
Yeah, I think the fact that you are so passionate, you bring it in every area of your work, and that's your key hustle. Very quickly, what has been a turning point in your entrepreneurial life?
Mm, I can't put my finger on a single turning point, Karthik. When I look back, there have been several turning points, right? I would say the first turning point would be that Bangladeshi person coming to my Facebook page and telling me that he wants a video in Bangla for his month, because that was a real eye opener. I was really working like a frog in a well. I was just trying to teach English to my folks, right? And that made me realize that the problem is much bigger than I think it is. It is not just limited to my Marwadi community or my Jaipur connects. So that was the first turning point in our journey. I had, gone through so many feedback sessions where every time I used to hear the same thing. Okay, there's already a big player in the market. You're just a first-time entrepreneur. You're not from a IIT, IIM. You don't have co-founders, and rather, why should we back you? So that one validation was very, very uplifting, not just in terms of financial resources, but also because Dr. Malpani has been an amazing human being, an amazing investor for us, a very good mentor for me personally. So I think that was my second turning point. The third turning point from the product perspective and from the overall business perspective was when we started monetizing. Because again, we waited a long time before we actually started monetizing. And when that happened, it was very, very gratifying. We started seeing, not just because money started coming in, we also saw that more serious learners started coming in. So more valid feedback coming into the product.
All right, Anuradha. We have an exciting last segment coming, which is the rapid fire round.
Okay.
So I'm going to shoot one liner to you, and you have to let us know whatever first thought that comes to your mind.
Okay, can I pass Tushar at some point if I don't remember or if I'm not able to come up with an answer? Do I have
No, you're not allowed to
not
pass.
allowed to pass? Okay. All right.
Okay, so the first one is pedigree or passion,
Passion, hands down.
profitability first or growth first,
As a startup, growth first, profitability will come in sometime.
multibhashi in 2025.
MultiBhashi in 2025. One stop solution to learn any language. Nobody would even imagine going anywhere else.
Okay, one thing you want to change about the startup ecosystem in India.
I would love to see more founders opening up and sharing their experiences. Like people should become more candid and experience their true and express their true feelings more openly.
One investor you deeply admire,
Dr. Anirudh Malpani.
one entrepreneur who's your role model,
Christine Hadid, the founder of Student Made. I've read her book. I follow her on LinkedIn. I think she's an amazing entrepreneur. And I'm not choosing based on success barometer or anything, simply by the fact that she shares a lot about what she's done, which is very helpful for others.
What's the name of her book?
Permission to Screw Up.
Okay, that's an interesting title. Any interesting white space you see which Indian entrepreneurs should solve for?
I think spirituality is one area where we haven't really seen much action, Tushar. Would love to see something there. Um, yeah.
Uh, Top three books you recommend for the readers?
So one is Permission to Screw Up, like I said.
Correct.
Second is this book by Ashish Chopra on viral marketing, on video marketing. I really enjoyed. I'm not able to recall the name right now, but really, really good book. Gives you some very actionable insights. Third, I'm not able to come up with Tushar. I'll pass this one.
Okay. Uh, so before you leave, Anuradha, any last piece of advice for the aspiring entrepreneurs out there?
Tushar, I would just like to say that this is something you just dive into without thinking too much about it, because you're not going to get a perfect plan and a perfect idea on day one. It is only by they talk about love, right? Tushar, I'll use a little bit of Hindi here. आग का दरिया है और डूब के जाना है. So unless you take a good, deep dive into this, you're not going to get any answers. So don't just sit on the fence and keep thinking about it, whether to make the jump or not. Just, take this big leap of faith and follow your instincts. I mean, and if you're doing something, make sure that you're doing it out of passion and not. I see a lot of young entrepreneurs, Tushar, wanting to become entrepreneur because they want to raise a lot of funds and they want to become a celebrity entrepreneur. I think those are all the wrong reasons to become an entrepreneur or start a startup. Start a startup only if the problem is really close to your heart.
All right, Anuradha. On that note, we wrap up our conversation today. It was a pleasure talking to you, and I'm sure it has been an enriching and interesting discussion for all our listeners. I totally enjoyed it. Thank you so much for sharing your journey and sharing these insights with us. It's a wrap for today. We hope you enjoyed this conversation. We will be back in the next episode with yet another story. If you have any suggestions for us, please reach out to us at our social handles. Don't forget to tune in to the Hustle Code, presented to you by Team Dexter. At Dexter, we partner with passionate entrepreneurs and help them scale. Until next time, keep hustling.